So, I've been behind on my Hero Acca for a few years now, and since the 6th season is coming out, I thought it was a good time to come back. Naturally, I started from the very beginning to refresh my memory, and I'll be damned if the show is not set in one of the most realistic fantasy worlds, cause nearly everything makes sense, from how the society integrated heroes and villains to how entire new industries appeared to accommodate that. There are plenty of parallels with the real world, and it's masterfully done. Hello comrade, my name is Mahis. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me, we got an exotic future to enjoy. As you could probably tell from the intro, I'm not up to date with the episodes, which is a good thing because I won't be able to spoil you anything from the last 2 seasons. On top of that, I'll do my best to limit the amounts of bombs I drop for those who haven't seen the show at all. But in order to properly dive in, we have to use the information that was sprinkled around in the first few seasons, so tread lightly from this point forward. Let's go back to the very beginning. Some time ago, one baby came up with a glowing quirk and one man came up with a few questions. However, they weren't alone, and soon even more porridge was done with the shit as quirks started to become a common occurrence, people wielding them with no restraint, governments still balancing their budgets. In other words, it all went to shit. Like Taco Bell levels of bad. Remember what my favorite color said? They could have space traveled already if these superpowers didn't appear out of thin air and halted the technological development of this world. Well, why does it sound oddly familiar? I recall a certain superpower getting popular around 5th century Europe and in combination with a few other things resulting in almost a millennia of negligible scientific and cultural development. Why didn't they just pick up from where they left after the dust settled? The technology is just lost, and it happened numerous times in our world. Take Roman concrete. That shit is tougher than whatever Genius is using, and we still can't recreate it on a large scale. It took generations, governments collaborating, and individuals stepping up to deal with this mess, although even the current situation is far from desirable. As we all know, the symbol of peace brought the crime levels down to an all-time low, and people were able to live their lives in relative safety. But all-time low doesn't mean actually low. You see, even on the way to work, All Might has to stop crimes. Hell, we've seen 2 separate villain encounters in the very first episode. Can you imagine how bad the situation was before? It must have been fucking miserable. Here's a chart from their TV news section. I can't read this, but they're talking about Swole Might and his reign as a pro-hero. It's reasonable to assume that this is his time as a pillar of hope, except he's almost 50 now, so something doesn't add up. Anyway, before his arrival, the crime rate was 6 times higher, which is like a difference between Brazil and Canada in 2017. Quite an improvement. Yet, if just in one day a random schoolboy encountered 2 bad guys, it would have been 12 before. And the further into the past we go, the grimmer it must have been. Oh, and while we're talking about publicity, the media in this world is just as wicked and untrustworthy as ours. It's manipulative. They're twisting and turning information to suit their needs best, disregarding the effect it has on the masses. Okay, not all of it is like that. There are a bunch of hardworking people who risk their lives broadcasting major events, glorify heroes, and inspire hope. That's all well and good. What I'm talking about are these 2 instances. Firstly, the hero killer situation. This Ninja Turtle face had a tremendous impact on the society, both villain and hero. So they tried to take down all these viral videos to make sure his influence doesn't spread. Still, they had to fabricate a story about Mr. Butthurt saving the day because the kids aren't allowed to use their quirks and blah blah blah. Was it bad? By all means, no. They protected their careers from being ruined, yet how many more stories were warped to look or sound different? Darth Vader was completely cut out from the history books, and his fight with Toshinori was concealed for the greater good, but I'll bet you my last emergency noodle pack, there are plenty of not so noble manipulations. Look at UA controversy after the camp. Villains themselves admit that it is stupid to blame heroes for what happened. The bad guys always have a jump on their victim and you can't predict everything. That's what any sane person would understand. Yet, the media makes UA and stuff look bad, asking these provocative questions and sowing seeds of discord, all for what? So nobody goes there? So number 1 hero maker ceases to exist? If that's not an action of a villain, I don't know what is. This school is one of the essential parts of this new order. Not only does it actively attract and home people who want to aid others, it also serves as a beacon of optimism. While it still stands, the future looks bright, because the community knows that every year a bunch of new heroes are graduating and are ready to save the day. That's why there is an entire new industry supporting these institutions. Yes, some things are not explicitly shown, like how do they manage to make all these robots to perform various tasks with AI so advanced they can even nag? The answer is in the first part of the video. This is a very advanced civilization. Sure, they're not interstellar, but it's not hard to believe they have the technology, and with quirks that can make shit bigger, smaller, weightless, manufacturing them wouldn't be too difficult. They made UA dorms in 3 days, for crying out loud, fully furnished too. That just goes to show how in demand these things are. The construction business must be thriving with villains running wild and students wrecking shit while training. However, it's all obvious and we've seen it so many times. This show though does something different in terms of creativity and foresight. Professional people in need of rescue. Of all the animes I've seen, there are few that focus on this kind of training, as it's always combat. But the whole point of being a hero is to save others, and as good as Trial by Fire is, it's way too irresponsible to let pupils train on actual civilians, cause they can easily make the situation worse. That's why they have dedicated people, actors if you will, who perform as victims during the events or exams, and even evaluate as well as coach newbies to prepare them for the real deal. Now, let's talk about the hero society as a whole in its current situation. Everyone is different, has their own values, goals, and ways to deal with things. Unlike standardized police, do-gooders are encouraged to have individuality, and I can't help not to draw some parallels with the content creators of all things, as you need to be a mix of skill, charisma, and something special to really succeed. These are freelancers, with a bit more structure, but it boils down to find a problem, solve it, get a reward. And before staying followers swarmy, being compensated for their efforts is totally normal. They still get to eat, sleep, and provide for their families. As for the amount, it all depends on the performance and how they're viewed as a public, which is exactly where we start having problems. Ratings, earnings, and such do not properly represent the value of a certain hero. Of course, it's important to establish that most, and I mean most, pros are real. They save people, fight villains, patrol streets, yet since they are a natural magnet for attention, they become a target of media and marketing. Those who have the spotlight are significantly more well off, as ads, merch, and charity funds are very much a thing. On the other hand, heroes like Gran Torino, who is arguably one of the most important ones due to his contributions to One for All, are living very modest lives. I'm sure all of his essentials are covered, but you know what I'm talking about. This system is far from fair and allows exploits like quirk marriages. I'm all for it if both adults are on the same page and the child doesn't suffer. But power and wealth can often override consent, which is no bueno. Having said that, hardly anybody goes to such lengths on the hero's side, and it makes sense. I believe that power doesn't corrupt, it merely allows people to be themselves. Look at Mount Lady. She can be a lazy, cheeky ass, pun unintended. Still, she's a hero who will put her life on the line any day of the week. The reason they don't succumb to greed and stuff is because they are embodiments of virtue. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it as a hero. Sure, there are some fluctuations in how exemplary they are, yet all of them fight for the good of the people, and we shouldn't let a few spoiled apples ruin the image of the rest. Lastly, I want to discuss something about my favorite part of any show really, the villains. I love how they're depicted in this series. Among all the psychos and plain horrible motherfuckers, there are a bunch of dudes who just don't know what to do and resort to crime, be it due to a quirk or other reasons. No wonder that happens. When even aspiring students are told to have a power perfect for an evildoer, it's hard not to bend under the pressure and not become the monster the society sees you as. Yeah, there's an argument to be made about nature versus nurture, but now more than ever, individuals are defined by what they're born with. If your quirk is to drink blood to transform into another person, it's damn hard to become a hero, not to mention a publicly successful one. However, there is something even more unsettling that the show tackles. Some of the biggest, baddest guys are roaming the streets freely with little to no fear of being caught. That's it. Like IRL, you never know who you're surrounded by, and if you think I'm exaggerating, look up the percentage of unsolved murder cases in your area. The US is at an all-time high of staggering 50%. Add quirks to the equation and people like Hagakure can only be caught in a miraculous set of circumstances. Damn, I don't remember an anime that hit it so close to home when it comes to fantasy world building. Like, there are shows that appear real, but quickly turn south the moment you start to think about it. My Hero Academia is a prime example of a story set in a very realistic environment. Of course, there are some assumptions we must take, and it's normal, since this is not a documentary yet. So one can only hope that they will continue the tale of young Midoriya for a while without breaking the immersion of the world they created. It was I, Mahis, stating the obvious into the microphone. Have a great whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers.